Hey, it's Mike over at fishyourassoff.com, and today's fishing class that we're going to do is all about how fish, well, inshore fish, I should say, react to tidal change, structure, wind, temperature, the tidal flows, all the different things that are going to affect inshore fish. Say you're trying to catch some snook or redfish, trout, things like that. So that's what we're going to cover today, and we're going to go through a few different scenarios with you, and then where to fish. Where to seek out those fish, I guess we should say. You never actually know where the fish are, but you can kind of guess. So here we go. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right. So our first scenario, might not be the best artist rendition, but these are mangroves. There's my little brown pelican on the top. So here's mangroves right here. All right, and this is where the water level is right now. So at high tide, it's a pretty safe bet that snook and redfish and flounder, there'll be sheepshead in there, there'll be mangrove snapper in there, whatever it is you're seeking inshore at high tide is going to be up in these roots. The shrimp, all the little bait fish, what they're looking for is going to be there. It's also relatively safe for them. They don't have to worry about some osprey coming in and grabbing them. They can hide from the sharks that are going to go up there and try to eat them. So not only does it have their forage there, but it also has protection for them too. Now, as the tide starts to drop, as this water level drops, they're going to leave that area, their safe place, and they're going to come and figure out where the channel is. So at low tide, and here's just a gradient of the the mud flat or whatever this mangrove is on. So it comes down, and almost always it's going to have some sort of drop off. And so at low tide, you're gonna have to figure out where this drop off is. So low tide, say the water's only here. Well, you don't really want to fish this flat too much unless you're targeting flounder or something. There might be some, but you really want to find where the drop off is if it's going to be low tide. So high tide, you want to be fishing up here in the roots or as close to the mangrove roots as you can get. Low tides, you got to find the pothole or the drop off that's going to be adjacent to something like this. All right. Now the next one, this is an oyster bar, okay? And very, very, most of the time, there's going to be a little channel on the side of an oyster bar because as this current, this is the current flow. So as the current is coming, it's usually digging a little groove as it rips around the corner of the oyster bar. And then when it's coming the other way, same deal. So the sides of the oyster bars like that are usually going to have a deeper area on the side because the tide is just going to keep dredging that out. And so if I were to see this situation, if I were to see the tidal flow like this in an oyster bar, I would do three different things. First of all, I would cast to either side, seeking out the deeper water that's most likely there. So I'd cast on either side of it. This is when one of those weedless gold spoons does wonders, by the way. Or a weedless, anything you put weedless so it doesn't get hung up on the, on the oysters. So I'd be on that side, and I would also cast to the leeward side. Because quite often, you'll have predators on the other side of this oyster bar just waiting for bait fish and shrimp and whatever they're going to feed upon to come around that corner. So you would cast at each point of the oyster bar, and you'd want to get behind it too, just in case there's some predators waiting for some prey. Another thing you're looking for, when a tide is dropping, it doesn't take much. You might have a 35-inch snook or something sitting in a little pothole that's only 2 feet deep. So don't forget about the pothole. So this is a grass flat. So if it's a real low tide, and you can find some of these drop-offs, very, very, very often you can find, redfish maybe hiding in there and just waiting out the tide, a big snook, Even though it's only 2 feet of water, you'd be surprised how big the fish can be, inside something like that. So that's basically the type of structures we're looking for as far as catching fish inshore. The first one we have is the mangroves. High tide, you're fishing up here. Low tide, you find the trough. You have your oyster bars, fish on either side, fish behind it, based on whichever way the current's going. And then, I call this a structure, but it's basically just a pothole, any kind of dip in water depth on a grass flat. That's the other one. But next one I want to talk about is wind. Okay, so here's your little island. It can be anything, but the wind is blowing this way. Okay, well, it's going to be a couple degrees warmer on the other side, and fish are very temperature sensitive. So they're going to move around based on the actual water temperature, because remember, they're cold-blooded species. Well, the ones we're talking about are cold-blooded. So they have to regulate their body temperature via external stimuli. So the wind's going this way. This side's warmer. So the leeward side of whatever it is, this is my little island, that's most likely where you're going to find fish. It's going to be warmer there, especially if it's a cooler day. Now, if it's the summertime, they don't care. The water's hot everywhere, at least down here in Florida. But, on these colder days in the wintertime and the early spring and the late fall, really this temperature makes it's a big deal for them. So it's best to fish on the leeward side when the wind's blowing. Okay. And here's another thing too. So this is another temperature regulator for fish. Well, the dark mudflat is going to be hotter because the dark is going to absorb more of the sun's energy. So the darker is going to hold the mudflat. The dark mudflat is going to hold fish if it's cold out earlier. And then once everything warms up, they might move off to a lighter sand or a grass flat, because the light sand is going to reflect a lot of the sun's energy, so it's not going to hold heat very well, but the dark one will. And here on the grass flat, same difference. Grass is typically a little darker, dark green, so this is going to be your hottest one. This is probably going to be second hottest, and this is going to be third hottest with that. And really that's what you're looking for with temperature. And let's say, for instance, that this is a channel going between these three. That'd be a neat looking place to fish if it had all three of these. But anyways, let's say it does. And let's say this channel, let's say on the grass flat and the sand, it's maybe 3 feet deep. And then you have an 8-foot channel that comes between them. Well, on a really, really cold day, what they're going to do a lot of times is they're going to move deep. If they can't get up on those flats, because quite often there might be a better temperature down low. And that also works for if it's super hot out. Quite often it gets too hot for the fish, at least here where I am. So they don't want any part of being on this mud flat. It might be 85 degrees or something like that. So they're going to go down in the deeper channel to regulate their body temperature the other way. They need to cool off. It's too hot for them. So basically you would fish these areas early if it's super hot out, and then as the temperature of this, as the sun increases the temperature of everything, then you want to fish these channels, the deeper channels. So they're probably going to be down low. So then you want to, have a jig maybe that can get down deeper, to try to figure out where those fish are, because they're not going to be in these areas once it gets a little too hot for them a lot of the times. I mean, some fish can handle a lot of hot temperatures, but for the most part, if they're not up on these parts, you want to dig down deep. You want to find them down deep, because that's probably where they are. So I hope that helped. You really have to figure out what these fish are looking for, and what the fish are usually looking for has something to do with safety, forage, whatever they're eating, and regulating their own temperature, their own body temperature. So if you can figure out, what the deal is on where you are, I mean, you should be able to go to anywhere. So you could go to, say, a part of Florida that you've never been to before, and just look for these type of features, and be able to find fish wherever it is you go. If you just figure out what the fish is looking for, I think you can do that. You can find more of this information too on our website. Our website's www.fishyourassoff.com. We have a how-to section, we have a where-to section, a what-to section, videos. We got all kinds of stuff on there. So a lot of this is on there. So it's basically a website full of simple tips to help fishermen catch more fish, which is basically what we all want, isn't it? But that's about it for today. So I hope you learned something. I hope you liked it. And until next time, we'll see you. All right. Bye-bye.